Hello and welcome to Bosch Professional Live UK. I'm Chris Murray, one of the professional power tool trainers here in Denham, and
I'm Danny. Again, today we're going to talk about impact drivers and impact wrenches. So a tool out there that many of you already have. We're going to show you the full range that we offer now.
Right, because it's obviously a live stream, we want to make sure that you guys are in participation. Pop your questions in the chat. Me and Danny will make sure that we get through them as we go through the stream, answer your questions where we can. Obviously, we're talking about impact drivers and impact wrenches, so we'd love to answer questions on that topic. But don't worry, if you have some questions about the rest of the range or products that might be coming, we'll also happily answer those questions at the end of the stream. Lawrence isn't with us today, I'm afraid, but don't worry, he's given us permission to show you some sneak peeks, especially when it comes to a new impact driver, or impact wrench actually, that we've got coming shortly next year. So where should we start? I think probably start off with defining impact drivers and wrenches, right, Danny?
Yes, definitely. Well, as opposed to what we were talking about last week with the combi drills that provide a linear impact down the shaft of the drill bit, now we're talking about a rotary impact. So I've got a little teaching demo here that I want to pop up on the table here and show you. Basically, this is a breakdown of one of the machines that we've been offering on the range for quite some time now. Impact mechanism is exactly the same as how it's always been with these machines. So inside the gearbox here we have the hammer, which is a large weighted piece of steel here, and an anvil, which is fitted directly onto the back of the where you place the socket on the front of the machine. Now this bolt here is loose, so I will show you how they tend to tighten things up. So the normal power of the motor will turn the gearbox, providing drive for the socket up until the point that it reaches the material. So as it's got tight there. So probably should have wound this up a little bit sooner. There you go. And you can see there, once it's reached the tightening of the material, the gearbox then provides rotary impact, driving the anvil round and tightening the fastening further. So this is a torque multiplier. The motor provides a set amount of torque anyway, but this multiplies the torque. The more you put the trigger down, the more torque's applied.
Exactly. So obviously, the last live stream we were talking about drill drivers and combi drills. Now you're using direct force there. Yes. So that's why you'd have relatively low torque values in the range up to 150. Obviously, if the bi-turbo brushless combi, the Gds18v Dash 150C, that's a lot of impact. That's a lot of torque.
That's raw torque.
Exactly. Raw torque from the machine, but now we've got a mechanical aid, so we can go up to much higher values, as you'll see in this live stream, all the way up to 1,050 Newton meters. And obviously that, if you try to direct drive that, that would be a massive motor. So, okay, that's how the impact mechanism works. So I guess where should we start? Today we're going to do something slightly different. We're going to include some 12-volt machines, and also we're not going to just go through the range from beginning to end. We're going to jump around a little bit, but also show you the machines that are the key machines in the range, as well as going up into our bi-turbo brushless machines. So let's start off with 12-volt, because actually we've got quite a good range of 12-volt impact drivers and wrenches. So let's start off with the Gds18v Dash 105.
Yes, yep, I've got that just here, actually. So we're looking at a 12-volt machine, hence the 12-volt on the naming structure of the machine. 105 means 105 Newton meters of max torque there. Lovely little machine, really short head length. We've got an all-metal gearbox, external and internal. A 1/4-inch drive, because this is a driver rather than an impact wrench. It's got a lighting system built into the gearbox. You can see that just there. And a battery level indicator on the side of the machine just here as well. So that gives you an idea of how much charge you've got left.
Great.
So quite a handy little machine, even with a 6-amp-hour battery on there. It's really packs a punch.
Yeah.
It does.
So with this machine, we obviously like our acronyms, and we would call this a GDR. So as we go through the presentation today, we'll show you the differences between GDRs, GDSs, and something else, a GDX. So the next machine I've got is another GDR. Okay, it is the Gds18v Dash 110, so the 110. Okay, so there's a slight difference between this model and the one that Danny just showed. Obviously, the first thing is it's 110 Newton meters of torque, so it's a little bit of a step up. And you'll see at the top, you've got a number of mode buttons on the top here. You've actually now got a speed selector. So you've got a button here, switch the tool on, and now you can go between two pre-selected speed modes. And then finally, you've got a button on the top that allows you to switch the light on and light off, which is ideal if you're working, again, in small and dark confined spaces. Yeah,
exactly. If you're tightening something away from yourself, having the light switchable on and off is a great advantage if you don't want to be dazzling yourself.
Right, so one difference as well, if I point to the back, just on the close-up, you'll see it's a EC motor or a brushless motor. So that's one of the reasons why we've got a little bit of extra torque while the machine stays nice and compact. The advantages of a brushless machine is the fact that obviously you don't have the carbon brushes to wear out, so it lasts 2 times longer. And because the brushless motor is more efficient than a brushed motor, you can get up to 30% longer runtime out of this machine when using a normal battery system.
Yes.
Okay, so
before we move off of that particular model there, we have the 115. So this is you get an extra 5 Newton meters with that. But this is a much forgotten about machine here. So this one is a torque wrench rather than a driver, sorry, an impact wrench rather than a driver. So it's running with a 3/8 square on the end of that. So allows you to use the smaller 3/8 sockets. Really popular in the motor industry because a lot of assembly building, they tend to use sockets of that sort of size. But of course, it's important to mention that tools use impact sockets with one of these machines.
Yeah, I mean, again, 12-volt range, excellent, very compact machines. The best advantage of the fact is that it's lightweight and compact, which means you can use it in all kinds of applications, particularly useful if you don't want to carry all your heavy 18-volt machines around. I mean, honestly, most of the time when we're working in our workshops doing training, we often just go and grab a 12-volt machine because it does nearly everything we want to do. With a maximum of 115 Newton meters of torque as well in such a compact form, that's usually enough for most fixings, most applications. Yeah,
yes, really short head length as well.
Oh,
allows you to get to really tight spaces. So.
I mean, what we're looking at is about 139, 137 head length. So very small.
Pretty good.
Okay, so we should probably jump up to another machine. So obviously we showed with those 2 machines that the only real difference is the fitment, moving from internal 3/4 internal hex up to a socket size. So if we go now to the 18-volt range, we'll start off with, let's have a look at the GDR range. Let's look at the Gds18v 200 range. That's the ones, So these machines, obviously, 18-volt. Starts off with the GDR. Again, it's an internal, it's an impact driver. It's got the 3/4 internal hex. The controls are very similar. You've got your forward and reverse, your variable speed trigger, and at the bottom here you'll have a few extra features that were on the top of the 12-volt machines. You've got a speed selector. Now you've got 3 speed settings that you can cycle through here, and then you've got your LED button here that you can switch on and off. Now, as in the name, it's because it's a Gds18v 200C. 200 is the Newton meter torque, so that's a 200 Newton meter torque machine, and C means it's a connected tool, which means you can connect this to the Toolbox app, and you can make some changes to the speed settings as an example. So what you could do there is you could pre-select, you could predefine 3 different speed settings for each setting on this machine. So if you've got particular products or applications which want to have a speed of a certain type, you can change that and customize this machine to whatever application you're doing. Now, if we show another machine, still within the 200 range, is now we've got the Gds18v 200C. So the only difference now is you've got a 1/2-inch socket.
Yes.
Okay, so good for you doing all your nut running, your bolts and such sockets. Essentially the machines are exactly the same. They're still both brushless. They're both outputting 200 Newton meters of torque. Right, so all we've changed is the fitment. Now, something that I believe is still a Bosch USP.
I think so.
Yeah, we've got a hybrid machine. We've got a GDX.
Yeah, X usually denotes a hybrid machine with most of our naming structure.
So as you can see, there's a slight change here. Obviously got the big red ring here, but if I hand this to you, Danny, there's your...
So we've got a standard 1/4-inch impact bit here. I'm going to pop that straight in the front there. So it's got a locking ring that you pull forward, slide the bit in, and it's locked in there. So that's performing the same functions as a GDR that we were talking about earlier. But the addition with this is you can remove that and fit the 1/2-inch socket on the outside. So again, using an impact socket and an impact 1/4-inch drive bit there. So
excellent flexibility. If, for example, obviously, if you want to do your screw driving, you've got your internal hex. If you want to run your socket, you can put the sockets on the outside there. I mean, don't get us wrong, it's an excellent machine. The GDR is obviously very compact.
Yes.
GDX is also a great combination tool if you just want to have one machine that does 2 different applications. Right, okay. Well, we're speeding along pretty quickly already. Yeah. So, I mean, we could have a quick pause for any questions that have come in.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a couple coming through. Hello, we've got one from Enoch Cheng, and he asks, when will the Freak be a high torque? Not sure if you guys understand what that means.
Well,
we're UK based. We might not know the slang for that.
Yeah, who is he talking about?
Who's he talking
Well,
about?
the Freak, I believe, is an American nickname for one of their impact drivers. I'm not familiar with them personally, because obviously in the UK we refer to our products by the GDRs, GDSs, and GDXs. I would wonder about the high torque as well, because I'd imagine probably quite high torque. Give us some more information. We'll definitely have a look at it. I don't know if we'll be able to answer it, because it might be an American-specific model, but we might know of an equivalent that's coming out in Europe that the US might be taking. Maybe we can answer that one.
How high a torque? That's really the big question, because we're some of the machines that we've got for the bi-turbo range, there's some ridiculously high torques there.
Exactly.
So yeah.
We'd be curious, what kind of torque are you looking at for high torque? Because high torque might mean something completely different to each and every different individual. Okay.
Yeah, it'd be good to know. So Ian Furlong has got a couple of questions. He asks, other than the 1/4 inch and 3/4 inch anvil and a minor difference in torque, what is the difference between the GDR18v Dash 1000 and GDR18v Dash 1050?
Well, we'll come to that.
Yes.
But I think you've covered quite a few bits already on that. That's fundamentally, you're looking at the different fitment, different socket size, but regardless, we'll get into that in detail when we actually get to those machines. At the moment, we're just covering the 18-volt range, but don't worry, towards the end of this presentation, we will be going up to the bi-turbo brushless machines, without a doubt, because they're beasts.
Yes, exactly.
And just to make you aware of another question that came from Ian, we again might get to this at the end, but any plan for a proper high torque 3/4 inch impact wrench to compete with the Milwaukee and new Metabo with over 2,100 Newton meters of breakaway torque?
Right.
Okay, well, when we get to the bi-turbo brushless section, we'll have a look and we'll do an analysis of what we already bring to the table in our bi-turbo brushless machines, and maybe we'll discuss it then about I think it's an inch drive, isn't it, the Milwaukee? But we'll have a quick discussion about what our offering is, see where it stacks up.
Thing is, our naming structure tends to be max torque. We list by breakaway torque is usually considerably higher. So unless we have that down as a specified amount, then we can look into that later and see if we're
exactly.
close.
I think when we're looking at the GDS18v Dash 1050 HC, I think we're up to about 17 or over 1,700 Newton meters of breakaway torque. But we'll get to that section and double check it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. And then final question we've got at the moment, of course, from Matthew Tucker. He asks, what size Procore battery is best for the impact wrench / impact driver GDX18v 200 CG?
Well, I mean, these are the 200s in front of us. Honestly, again, it's runtime. I mean, at the moment, these have got the Procore 18V 4 amp hours, which are perfectly adequate. I mean, more than sufficient. I mean, in the old days, not that old, typically we would say the standard battery, which is a 4 amp hour battery, more than enough to power these machines. With the Procore batteries, which this one's a single layer, for example, more than enough amps to run these machines at maximum power. It really becomes a conversation of runtime. If you're running we'll call a double layer battery, you're going to have more than enough power to drive the machine. Then you're just wondering how much runtime do you want? Yeah,
I mean, if you're out all day and you've not got access to a socket to charge the batteries up, probably looking at something in the region. Well, again, it depends entirely on how often you're using the machine and how often you've got access to a charger.
Exactly. Well, I mean, typically because we've got them to access. We typically always just put the Procore batteries on, partly because of the improved cells. That gives this machine the maximum amount of power pretty much all the time. The standard non-bi-turbo machines are never really going to tax the Procore batteries. So you're always going to get the most efficient runtime and the most efficient energy output out of a Procore battery. But obviously these machines were designed for the normal Coolpack battery system, so 4, 5, 6 amp hours, plenty.
Yeah, I think if you're talking about power per weight, 8 amp hour.
Definitely.
That's the most power you're going to get for that particular class weight of battery.
Exactly. Okay.
Perfect. So that's all the questions for now. So anyone in the chat who's currently listening, if you've got any questions related to impact drivers and wrenches, please let us know in the chat. And later on in this live stream, feel free to ask questions about our other tools too. We won't shy away from them, but we're just trying to keep it specific to the impact range for now.
Okay, so obviously we'll just finish off this last little section, which is just saying, look, within our range of products, typically we will have 3 different machines, the GDRs, the GDSs, and then the GDXs. So within, as we go up in different ranges, you'll see that we've got usually similar machines, but then we have all three options as an option for you to select the specific product. Again,
Yes.
for your internal hex, your half-inch, and your combination if you want to run both. Okay, so what's the next ones on our list? We're going to go back in time a little bit, or back in spec, so to speak, because we started off in the middle. Now we're going to have a look at the Gds18v-160.
Yes, so this is a good little prize fighter when it comes to a lower cost machine. You're looking at 160 Newton meters for this particular one, weighing in at just over a kilo. That's without a battery, I believe. And comes with the 1/4 inch drive hex socket on the end there, as with all the GDRs. The light is built in just underneath there, so you've got a little single LED. Variable trigger, as with all of them. The only difference with this is the externals for the gearbox are in plastic rather than in metal. It does mean it's a lighter machine, but obviously it's slightly lower cost to the 200s there. So it's a good budget buy. It's a lot of power for the weight of the machine.
Yeah, it's a brush machine, so it's obviously more affordable. It still has an RPM of 2,800 RPM, and an impact rate of 3,600. So it's no slouch, even though technically it's a more cost-effective machine. It will do a lot of work for you. 160 Newton meters of torque. That's plenty. That's plenty of torque for the typical applications out there.
Yes, yeah, for most carpenters, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so the next one we've got is a bit, not an oddity, but again, we're going to jump up to a machine that started a trend for us. We've got the Gds18v Ec 300 ABR.
Bit of a mouthful.
A bit of a mouthful. We'll just call it Gds18v Dash 300.
Yes.
Okay, so we came out with this machine a couple of years ago, and well, I guess we kind of aimed it towards scaffers. It's brushless, which means it's very efficient, and also it's running the 1/2 inch socket. But what made the big difference was this ABR function. On this machine, we had a button at the bottom. You can zoom in on that. Okay, and then you could toggle. There we go. And you could just toggle this function. Oh. I say. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be working there. It's a bit embarrassing. So you'd have the ability to toggle the ABR function on and off. Okay, so ABR stands for automatic bolt release or automatic bolt retention, and this basically means that when you are loosening a bolt, it would automatically detect once the bolt has loosened off. Yes. And it would detect that change in speed or torque, and then it will switch off after a set amount of time. And this was all baked into the machine. This was a set algorithm. So that was really useful if you're a scaffolder, so you wouldn't run the bolts off your clamps and things like that.
Definitely. If you're 4 or 5 stories up, I know we should all be wearing hard hats on a building site, especially scaffolders, but things happen. There's the potential of dropping nuts, bolts, washers, clamps, or even the tubing when undoing them. So if you run the nut all the way off, all of that stuff can fall down and potentially hurt someone. So the advantage of this was to stop the nut before it comes all the way off, therefore allowing you to control the clamp, not drop the clamp, and potentially hurt someone.
That's right. I mean, the health and safety is obviously really important, but then again, just the fact of inventory, the fact if you don't want to keep losing all these bits because, well, unless you're going to go all the way down to the ground and go pick them up again.
Yeah, it's a fair few stairs to get down there and pick them up on a high rise, I'd imagine.
So look, when we had this machine, it had one function. It had just the ABR function. So we baked that into this machine. It had a set amount of algorithms. So as I said, what it would do is detect once the motors, once you've loosened, you get a change in the amount of RPM on the machine because it's not having to work against the tightening force of the bit. And then it would have this event, and it will be a spike in the amount of torque or speed that the machine is responding to. When it hit that spike, that event, the machine would go, right, what do you want me to do? Okay, I'll apply my ABR algorithm to it.
Yes.
But we decided, we thought, hang about, we don't need to limit it just this one machine. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to roll out a whole bunch of machines that have this algorithm, but now we're going to give the user, because we've got the connected tools, the user's now got the ability to change these settings and do some quite interesting things with it. Which leads us to our next range of products, which are the GDR, the GDS, and the Gds18v-210C. Okay, so let's grab a couple of them.
Let's grab some of them. There we go, GDR, GDS.
Okay, so there's your GDR. close up, and you'll see it's very, very similar to the 200 series, so the GDR18v 200C. It's obviously still connected, but the connectivity module has changed outside, so it's hidden itself on the other side now, but it's still a connected tool. It's still brushless. It's got up to a no-load speed of 3,400 RPM and a maximum impact rate of 4,100 BPM, so beats per minute. So a good upgrade from the previous model. Now, the biggest significant change is the fact that now at the bottom it has a different UI, user interface. Let that focus in there. You've still got your speed selection, which you can change via the app because, again, it's a connected tool. You can change the speed settings for those for 1, 2, and 3. But the change now is an AB mode, and sometimes we'll refer to this as the APP function.
Yes.
Okay. So now ABR is no longer just ABR. Now we've got a number of things we can do in the app. Okay. We'll get into that later. We'll just show you the other machines in the range because, again, we've got a GDR, 3/4 inch internal hex. We have our GDS, again, 1/2 inch socket, perfect for socket running, still, again, with all the same UI as before. And then finally,
we have the GDX as well there. So a complete range again, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch socket, and both.
Exactly. So what we would like to do, because obviously, again, we could just tell you what this function does, how the algorithm works. However, it's much better if we show you some example videos that we filmed earlier today. Yep. So what you can do, again, remember, it's all about that incident, that whenever the machine's running and it hits any kind of incident when it's when it's loosening or tightening a belt or driving screws, actually, it can do something with that point of information. Now, when we were talking about drill drivers and such, you have obviously torque settings on these machines, and that helps you dial in the amount of torque or when you want the machine to stop drilling into the material, or screw driving into the material. Because obviously the last thing you want to do is foul an expensive piece of material when you're screw driving into it. You have the torque settings on a drill driver or a combi, but you don't have them on impact drivers. And we know, actually, a lot of you guys out there like using these impact drivers for running screws. They're very fast. Obviously, you've got your own speed controller, but sometimes you might make a mistake. And what we can do with this APP function is we can calibrate these machines to take away a lot of that human error that sometimes can creep in there. So, what's the first video we've got lined up, Rob?
We have got driving into wood, but without, yeah, exactly, any torque settings applied. So here we go.
Yeah, so this was me earlier on burying a screw way too deep in a piece of wood. Luckily, not an expensive piece of wood, but yeah, that's not how to do it.
That'd be fine.
That'd be fine.
Yeah,
bit of filler.
Bit of filler, bit of glue, no problem. They'll never know, mate. They'll never know. So obviously, that's a good example of when you might be a bit too enthusiastic when you're doing your screw driving. Obviously, again, you've got your speed controller here, but mistakes happen. Okay. So what you can do with the APP function is you can dial in essentially a torque value.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So we'll just show you what we'll do is we'll show you the video now of what you can do. Here you can see it in the app.
So yeah, this was me setting it up the period of time in which you want the impact to take place, so you can govern the depth of the screw is driven into the wood. You can build a bit of a library of this after a while, but as you can see, I still had the trigger pulled. It was the machine that does all the thinking for me there, and it seated the screw perfectly into the material, so it's consistent, constantly over and over again.
Exactly. If you use that material continuously, you get exactly the same result every single time. You don't have to worry about letting off the trigger. Yeah. The machine will automatically do it, and it's very precise. Every time we've demoed this machine to other end users, I mean, I think they've been generally quite impressed how quickly it just shuts off, completely dead, and you get that nice flush seating of the screw. Yeah. The
advantage as well with the app, which we'll show you later in far more detail, allows you to create a library of fixings as well. So over a 6-week, 7-week period of doing several different types of fixing with several different types of material, you can build up a library of exactly what you're doing for your daily job. So it's just a matter of turning up on site, dialing in the material and the screw, and you know you've got the right torque settings there.
Okay. So I think the next video we've got set up is one of the other features, which is looking at nut running or bolts. So let's have a look at that one. Okay, so you can see Dan's going through the different options, selecting, well, he's going through the presets here, and then you can go back to, so we've set up a mode here for scaffold poles.
Yes, I set this up earlier, so we've saved that. We're going to set up the shut off after time there, so that's going to limit the amount of impacts once the bolt's seated, and we're going to set up the ABR there, or the automatic bolt release, for quite quickly after the nut's released. So first application of the trigger here is to do it up. Notice I've pulled the trigger and I've still got the trigger held. So the machine stopped at the given value that I've applied to it. And again, yeah, it's consistent.
Yeah, automatically switches off, gets you into the right ballpark for torque. Remember, these aren't torque rated, but more importantly, what it does, it limits the amount of torque, so you can't over tighten and more importantly, damage whatever you're doing.
Yeah, if we're going back to scaffolding again, it allows you to dial in a torque value that the machine's going to provide each time. So you're going to get consistency across many different fixings. If you set that to just under where you need to be, I mean, you'd still go around with a torque wrench just to get your scaffolding certificate signed off for that particular build. But yeah, it allows you. It cuts down on the amount of time sort of messing around with the torque wrench trying to get the right setting later.
Right. So I think the last bit of video we've got is the ABR function.
Yep. So again, pull the trigger and forget about it, and what it'll do, it will stop just before the nut comes off. Still got the trigger pulled. So
exactly. So
again, that will prevent you dropping that scaffolding clamp.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, for any running of, even if it's on a longer bolt, you can adjust that so it will spin the nut off further.
Well, what we'll do is obviously we'll actually show you in the app, because we've obviously got the opportunity now with us in front of you. We've got an iPad that we can show you some of the different features so you can get a real in-depth view, because obviously in the video we only showed you the result of our calibration. Let's have a look now, I guess, isn't it?
Yep. We'll take a look. Can we bring up the iPad? So this is what we're sitting at the moment. I've got the GDX set up here, and I've got it set up to metal bolt. So Chris, you're going to talk us through this, and I'll...
Right, so we obviously discussed, let's start off with the ABR. So with automatic bolt release, you can adjust the amount of time with which the machine will run after it's after it's loosened the bolt from the material. So you can have it at a much earlier time, which is in tenths of a second. So there we go, the minimum there. And then you can go all the way up to, I think, is it a second?
It's a full second there.
Full second. So if you've got a longer thread and you really want to run that bolt a little further down before it switches off, you can adjust it here.
Well, you've got to remember, there's a 3,400 RPM for that particular machine. 1 second of removing a bolt is a lot of thread.
That's right. There's a nice little explanation tab there, so if you actually aren't sure what the function does, you can just bring this down, and it's got a nice little graphic here that explains exactly what's happening. See, the bolt's loosened, and then it will automatically switch off after a set amount of time that you can preset here. Now the next setting you've got is an auto slowdown. Again, if you've got a really long thread and you want to have a little bit more control, you can set it so once the nut has released, yeah, it will automatically slow down the machine, so it's a bit more control for you, especially if, as I said, you've got a long thread to work with at the end.
Yeah, so it doesn't catch you by surprise when it gets to the end of the thread.
All right. The last one you got here is the shut off after time.
There's also an explanation for that as well. Yeah, so it gives you a little animation in the case of every single setting on here, just in case you've forgotten or you're trying to maybe train an apprentice to use it.
Now the final setting you've got here is the other one you saw in the video, which is a auto shut off after time. So this is when you're tightening. So what you can do is, again, once the bolt has hit the material and is is tightening, you can have the machine automatically shut off after a set amount of time. Let me have a look. What's the setting on that scale? Again?
I've currently got this set to minimum, but I can go all the way up to a full 5 seconds of impact. So that's enough there to reach the maximum torque of the machine, definitely.
Yeah.
But again, this is an intelligent application of torque rather than brute force. I know we discussed earlier on about having really high torque machines, but like they say, power's nothing without control. Being able to control that torque accurately for us is a big selling point.
Exactly. This actual mode has an additional setting, which is advanced shut off after time. So what you can do here as well as controlling how long impact you've got.
Sorry, wrong one.
It's okay.
There you go.
How long you want the machine to continue to run once the bolts hit the material. You can also adjust the impact rate. So you can, again, turn that down a little bit if you want to have a little bit more control. So again, all these settings are for you as a user to really dial in exactly what you want to achieve with this machine. Now this is all the metal bolt settings, and if you scroll along the top you can select different settings. This is the other one we saw, wood screwing, and I think we showed one of these settings. So the first thing you do is you would press save, and that will transfer that machine the information to the machine. So now mode A is going to be wood screw function, and we've got an auto shut off after time, and this is the one you saw.
Yeah, this was dialed to 6 for when I did the demo earlier. You can adjust this maybe for a harder material, or do you want to go for more of an impact there to seat it. Again, a softer material, you go for less. So it allows you to dial in the particular fixing for the material that you're applying it to. Go from a pine all the way up to an oak.
Yeah.
And beyond.
Yeah, and what you'd do obviously is once you'd get a good feel for what kind of settings you need. After a little while, you work out on the soft material, you need a little less time, and your harder woods, you dial it up, and then you do a couple of dummy runs maybe, and then you get that dialed in spot on, and then you could just save it as a custom setting. The final setting we didn't show you, which was the auto slowdown. Oh, sorry, still in wood mode. Yep. Is the auto slowdown. I mean, this is when you're driving in long screws or coach bolts for like roofing and timber and stuff like that. You might want it to run full speed to start with, and then towards the end, you might want a little bit more control. It'll automatically step down in speed to give you a little bit more control. Again, you can dial it in however you want to make sure that you're getting, you're doing your job the way you want to do it. The tool is just an aid to help you do it. Now, the final setting we didn't show you, it's very similar to wood screw, but again, these machines, the 210 series machines, also has the ability to work with self-tapping screws. So these are screws that go into metal. It works very similar to the wood mode. It'll automatically switch off once it gets to a certain, once it's basically gone in and seated itself correctly. And then again, if you perhaps had longer screws, perhaps, you've also got the auto slow down function, so you've got a little bit more control. Again, it's down to you guys to set it up however you'd like. Now, we've obviously got the A/B mode within the app, but there's another feature that we've got, so we can actually set it in a custom mode. Yes. And we can then set it for 2 different modes depending on which direction the tool is working in. So we can have a tightening and loosening function. So if you go to the custom mode and press plus, you see, you can assign 2 different sets of algorithms depending on which direction the machine's running.
Right, so let's set up one for tightening first. So tightening, we want to get the shut off after time. That'll give us an amount of impact once the fixing is actually touched the material. So if we dial that down to maybe 1.5 seconds there. We can also adjust the advanced shut off after time as well to slow the machine down a little bit before it gets there.
Okay, and then you can now set, if say for example, if you wanted to put the machine in reverse, you can now set a completely different setting, such as ABR. So when you're loosening something, it'll automatically have that. So you don't have to switch now from mode A to B. Now it's very intuitive. So if you're doing some bolt running, it'll automatically switch off once you've tightened it up, and it'll automatically switch off once you've loosened it as well.
There you go. So if I create the custom mode here, if I can type this, where are we? Scaffolding, that'll do. You can select an icon. You can also choose pictures. So
you can take a picture. So you can create new.
So create a new picture there. I'll take a photo of the back of the desk. There you go. Use that photo. So again, you can take a photo of the piece of material and the fixing you're using, maybe a self tap and maybe a wood screw, maybe a nut and a bolt and a picture of a suspension unit, anything like that. And you can save that as a custom setting. So there you go. We've got a custom setting saved into the iPad now or your mobile device, which will allow you just to select that, save it as your A or the B function on there. So the app gives you the ability to set 25 of these custom settings as well. So with a tightening and loosening program in each one of those, that's an extra 50 settings that you can have saved on here. So there's plenty of space there for you to create a proper library of fixings.
Okay, so let's cut back to the close-up camera for a second, just so I can show the UI again, just to remind everyone, and also people that might have joined later. What we're discussing is we're discussing the new feature on the APP function on the new GDR, GDS, and GDX impact drivers and wrenches. You've got the AB mode here. So obviously all those settings we had, we were only assigning to mode A. You can have another mode assigned to B, but what we had is backwards and reverse both in mode A. Speed settings as before, we can set all those within the app. And again, more importantly, this is obviously this is our user interface. You can see it's got a green line. When you change the battery, for example, I've got an example of a battery that is a bit on the more depleted side. You can see it's amber. So, oh, it's connected now. So it's amber, and you can see, or maybe you can't, it's hard to see, but you get a nice visual warning that the battery is going flat. When Dan makes a change to the app, you'll see that when it calibrates, it flashes blue.
Hang on a second, I shall just do that
for me.
Oh, you restarted it, which is making this difficult.
Sorry, mate.
Oh, hang on, there you go.
There we go.
There you go.
So it's obviously important to know when this machine is calibrating it, well, not calibrating, when it's transferring information to the tool from the app, it will flash blue. You might want to make sure you don't press too many buttons when it's doing that, otherwise it might interrupt the signal. Right, Rob, I think you wanted to grab our attention for a second.
I did indeed. So we had a quick question from Matthew Tucker around the same subject of the app. He said, can you set the Gds18v 200 CG for self-tapping screws for ductwork, pipe, Flexi duct?
Right.
Duct, etc.
No, I understood your question. So the 200, I'll grab the example. I'll grab the GDX version. So remember, the 200 is connected, but it doesn't have the APP function. As you can see, it's got a completely different UI or user interface at the bottom. So unfortunately, no, this feature came with the 210 series, and you'll see it's also available on the bi-turbo brushless machines as well.
Yes.
Although you don't have the self-tapping screw function for the big machines, because I don't think you would use the application.
No.
So no, unfortunately not. You'd have to step up to the GDR, GDX, Gds18v Dash 210C to get that functionality.
You can limit the torque slightly with the speed settings, but
correct.
in reality, you've got to use the processing power of your finger to reach the right torque.
Yeah, if you want it to automatically switch off, it has to have that new AP function. Okay.
I'm going to throw in another one here for you. Well, sort of an addition to a previous comment. So this is from Six Atlantis, and he says, per usual, I'm not watching live, but to answer the question about the Freak models here in the States, they are the GDX models. So that previous question was, when will the Freak be a high torque?
Now I understand. So you're asking when does the when are we going to have a high torque GDX? That is a good question. Now, I have not seen any plans for anything larger than the 210 range for the GDX model.
Yeah, no, we've tapped out of that at the moment. There's nothing I've seen, even in the pipeline, for a GDX and anything more high torque.
Yeah, so we have got some other machines that we'll show you today, some of that I haven't released yet, but none of them are GDXs yet.
I'm not sure about driving anything that sort of weight and that sort of power through a 1/4 inch screwdriver bit. Maybe that's got to be a very specific application.
Yeah, you normally want to step up already to like a socket drive already if you're going to try and deliver that anything higher than the kind of torque values we're looking at in the 200 region, that you might want to change into a different accessory.
I'd say you probably get into the uppermost torque that one of those, even the torsion bits that we offer, into that sort of torque you're looking at maybe snapping them. So I don't know. It depends entirely. It sounds like you wanted an all-rounder tool, I think, but I think that may be slightly beyond the 1/4 inch drive.
Yeah, that's what we think as well. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions, Rob?
No. We're all covered on the questions for now. So if there's any more that you guys want to ask, just let us know, and we'll get to them later on.
Okay. So we've kind of covered the normal, we'll say the normal 18-volt range. Obviously the GDR, GDS and GDX 18v-210 series, excellent machine. The fact that you've got this app function, I think, really makes a big difference. I think we're really bringing something I think Bosch are bringing something quite unique to the market currently. I don't know whether or not really there's that level of functionality available to you guys as users coming from any of our competitors. So I'm very happy with this machine. I'm really happy with the functionality it gives you. So I think what we'll do is now we'll step up to our bi-turbo brushless machines and start talking about those, because you're going to see in a minute where it's a substantial change in size at the very least.
Yes.
So the first thing we'll have a look at is our Gds18v-1000C.
So with this particular model, square drive there, we've got 1/2 inch. This is the smaller of the bi-turbo machines, or the less powerful of the bi-turbo machines. Perfect for automotive use. Quite a bit of a weight to this one, mainly because of the all-metal external gearbox. Really quite a thick external for the gearbox as well. So takes a fair bit of brutality on the outside of the machine as well. Quite hard wearing. But yeah, also contains the APP functionality on this connected model as well. So we've got the same user interface as we had on the GDX 200, GDS 200.
The 210 series.
210 series. Sorry.
210 series. Yeah. Although, as I said earlier, it doesn't have the functionality. It doesn't have a self-tapping screw function because, well, you wouldn't be using that kind of application with this kind of machine, really.
Yeah, wood screws by all means if you're using coach bolts, but you're talking about some really thick fixings then. So yeah.
Fun favourite is obviously the belt clip, and we make the joke by saying if you really want to, lose your trousers?
Yep, pull your trousers down straight away. Buy yourself a nice strong belt if you're going to hook that on your belt strap.
It's a substantial bit of kit. I mean, I'd probably want that on the ladder rather than my belt.
I would imagine so, yeah.
Now, I think we had some conversation talking about specifications for these kinds of machines. This one obviously is the 1/2 inch, and we're talking about breakaway torque. This particular model, as you said, has a 1,000 Newton meters of torque, and it has approximately up to 1,600 Newton meters of breakaway torque. So I mean, we're not up to like, was it the 2,000 mark and the 1 inch drive? So these machines aren't spec for that yet. We might have those come in the future, and if they do come, they'll be bi-turbo machines, because again, the only reason we can get this level of power coming out of this machine is because of obviously the bi-turbo brushless motor inside, which is obviously our latest and greatest state-of-the-art brushless motors, in conjunction obviously with the Procore 18-volt battery set, because obviously these machines only work at their most powerful, at their most optimum, running an 8, a 5.5 or a 12 amp hour battery.
Yeah, it's important to notice as well that the big numbers sound fantastic, but do you really need that much torque? It really depends entirely on the application. Automotive wise, not so much. Yeah, they're not high torque applications for most automotive things. If you're talking light goods vehicles, heavy goods vehicles, then the next tool up is the one you want to go for the slightly larger fixings.
I was going to say, you were saying it's not all about torque. Let's go get a bigger machine. So if you grab the next machine in the line.
Yep. So we've coupled this one with the 12 amp hour battery, so this one really is a bit of a heavyweight at the moment. But again, that's the Gds18v Dash 1050 HC.
Correct.
So,
HC, yes.
Yeah, on this we're looking at 3/4 inch drive, similar slightly higher power motor, same gearbox setup, same gearbox external dimensions. Really is a heavy hitter.
Yep.
It's slightly heavier than the previous model.
Exactly. And again, remember, it's got the same feature set on the front, on the HMI, where you can change the different speed settings and the AB function. So essentially exactly the same machine, but just stepping up the drive. Now, we have another machine. Both machines have a non-C version. So here's an example of the 1000 non-C. So it's just the 1000, and you can see that the UI is slightly different on the bottom, where you have your 3 speed selections, but obviously they're preset speeds because you haven't got the connectivity module. And instead of having the APP function, you've got the ability here to switch the LED on and off again. So, I mean, if you don't want or need that level of flexibility, you can go for this machine, which is simpler. Yeah, it does everything you need, but if you're happy to step up to a bit more functionality, a bit more user customizability, then going for the connected version of the machines will be a really good step up. Right, a little pause for some more questions, Rob, if you have any.
All out here, to be honest, but Matthew Tucker does say, oh, my camera's off, but never mind, you can still hear me. Thank you, guys. Great video.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. That's very nice to hear.
Nice. Answer this question.
We can never work out whether or not we're putting you guys to sleep with our nerdy level of tech. We've tried to balance it between keeping it simple enough, but obviously nerdy enough that me and Dan can have fun as well. So, look, we looked at the bi-turbo brushless machines. We've got technically 4 in the range. As I said, you've got the 1000 and the 1050 versions, and then you've got the non-connected version as well. So connected and not connected, depending on what you want. Plenty of torque, bucket loads of torque for you. Should be enough for most applications, I'm believing.
Yes.
Now, what we can also do is we can do a bit of sneak peek, because obviously Lawrence isn't here, but he's given our permission to talk about a new product. But we'll have to put it into some context. So what we'd like to show you first is an older machine. It's the Gds18v Ec. You should probably might recognise it. It's been out there for many years.
This one's been out for quite a while. So we're looking at a slightly older machine here. Very strong, very well respected machine. A lot of garage workers tend to use these. I know I originally come from the motor industry myself, in case you hadn't guessed already. But yeah, a good 1/2 inch impact here. You're looking at 650 Newton meters for this particular model. Not much in the way of bells and whistles, mainly because it's an older machine. But we still have an LED on the bottom here and a variable trigger. So yeah, lovely machine, very well established. Yeah, still available, is it? I think.
It's still out there in the market, but what I want to use this machine for is to bring some context to a machine that hasn't come out yet. So the machine I want to show you is the Gds18v Dash 450 PC. So this is a marketing sample, move that out of the way. This is a marketing sample of a machine that hasn't come out yet. I think it'll be coming out early next year. Look, first things first, look at the size difference that we have managed to achieve. I mean, obviously it's a much smaller machine. It's obviously got the connectivity. It's brushless, which is also a great advantage. And again, it has the same UI. It still has the APP function on the bottom here. So everything we've been discussing earlier in regards to all the customizability, using your smartphone to dial it in applies to this machine just like it did for the 1000 series products, the 210 series. This machine will also have that ability. Yeah, look at the size reduction. I know this is a 450 Newton meter torque, so it's a little less than this machine was delivering, but the sheer size change.
Power per kilo is by far in excess. Really, it's a fantastic machine. I've borrowed this one and used it in anger a couple of times on my own car. Fantastic, absolute game changer when it comes to getting into small spaces. Plenty of power.
Yeah, it's as you said, it's a 450 Newton meters of tightening force, and it's got a breakaway torque of 800 Newton meters, and all of that within was this 169 millimeters head length, which is excellent. So, although you might say, I want more power, we've always saying it's horses for courses. This will do a lot, especially in the automotive industry and stuff like that.
Yeah, and again, you've got that intelligent use of the power as well.
So you can see that there's a trend with all our new products that a lot of them are going to come with this APP function. It'll be usually the machines that are all going to be connected is probably the best way of looking at it. If it's a connected machine, more likely or not, it's going to have this special algorithm to help you dial in your work, your applications, and make sure that it all works nicely and how you want it to.
Yes, we're really building on the already quite well established connectivity functionality of a lot of the machines that we've got.
Right.
Bigger and better things.
Yes, exactly. So, we should have a little quick word about accessories, because again, the tool's no use without its accessory. We did obviously point out a few of the fitments. So obviously we've got our internal 1/4" hex, but we've got some bits here as an example. These are important because these are impact driver bits. And there's a reason why we produce these, and I'll show you another pack here. There's an example of another accessory set that we've got here, with a whole range of different accessories within the impact, or we call it impact control range.
Yes.
So why, I'll pass that to you, Danny, why do we want an impact control accessory?
Well, you run the risk with many, especially hardened materials, because you want a hard material for this sort of application. You run the risk of shattering it when you're applying so much impact through a particular bit. You can imagine running a 1,000 Newton meter machine through something like that. It's probably not going to be your normal application. But they're designed with a weakening, or not a weakening point, but almost like a torsion zone in the centre, which allows a little bit of twist just to take away that initial shock of the impact. So you're still getting the impact force through the accessory, but you're not running the risk of actually shattering it. So another little bit of intelligent design there.
Yes.
Again.
It's sometimes overlooked. Some people might just want to use just normal screwdriver bits or normal internal hex driver bits, but we wouldn't recommend it for that exact reason, because you're running the risk of damaging stuff, and again, you don't want to break an accessory while you're driving mid-screw or anything like that. So,
actually, that's highlighted, especially when we're talking about sockets as well.
Yes, exactly. Obviously, we provide a whole range of sockets as well. We've got the example of these ones, the automotive ones.
Yep, they're for alloy wheel nuts. So yeah,
and then we've got the shorter ones for just your normal bolt running.
Again, you're looking for the darker coloured ones. Mainly, they're a thicker walled socket, much stronger. Much more capability of transmitting that high torque, but if you will see people out there using the chrome vanadium sockets on these sort of machines, and you really are taking your life into your own hands with that sort of thing, because they do shatter and can cause some really horrific injuries.
Yeah, exactly. So these are the ones we're talking about here.
I think most people are well taught that when they're going through the training phases of the automotive industry.
Now. We've talked about these for quite a few times actually.
Yes.
But we do like talking about these. Obviously these are multi-construction drill bits, but as you can see, and I'll do a close-up again, these are our hex bits. So you can see that they can be mounted into a GDR or GDX, and you can run this. So that means it turns your impact driver into quite a fast drill. Again,
you're looking at maybe twice, if not 3 times the amount of rotation speed on an impact driver over and above your standard combi drill. So yeah, fantastic opportunity to pop a drill bit in there and proceed through your work a little bit quicker.
Right, so remember the live stream we had the last couple of weeks ago where we were talking about the combi drills? And obviously when we were talking about the use of a combi drill, we're drilling into things like brick and masonry and that kind of stuff. You want the impact mechanism, but obviously the impact mechanism on the GDR, as we discussed, it's a rotary and not a linear. But this is one of the great advantages of the multi-construction drill bits. It's tungsten carbide, which means it cuts through the material, and it's not just masonry, remember it's multi-construction, so it'll do wood, plastic, metal, brick.
And tile.
Exactly, it'll do tile, of course, yeah. And you don't need the impact mechanism for that. So, again, you've got that high speed, you're using the tungsten carbide, which makes that a very, very, you can say, it converts your impact drive into a very, very effective drill. So when it's applicable, you've got the whole range of multi-construction hex bits that can help you get through any application.
Yeah, what sort of size do we go up to maximum in that? I think it's
Good question.
16 mil, I think? 16 or was it higher?
No, 20 mil I think is for smoothbore shank. I'll double check that one. But yeah, I mean this pack as an example goes.
You're going to get to a
mil.
limitation with the hex interface anyway. So yeah.
So okay, so that's a little bit of the accessories. But honestly, look, we have plenty of different kinds of accessories out there for impact drivers. We've just showed you a very small, brief example. Obviously, we love using the impact control stuff and the multi-construction build sets because they work so well. But again, we've got a huge range of Bosch accessories just for drill drivers, impact wrenches, etc., etc. So, any questions, Rob?
Indeed we do. So we've had, well, a compliment, we'll take that, from Bolkar. They say, yeah, really appreciate these live tool introductions. So it's good to know they're valuable. But we've also had a couple of questions from Callum, and he says, maybe a question for the end, but with the release of a new second fix nail gun, is there any plans for a big first fixer to pair with it for other joinery work?
Now, again, Lawrence isn't here, so we usually have to ask his permission. But again, whispering now. Yeah. Yes, we have seen plans to expand the nailer range. Yes. Obviously, first fix is going to be part of that. There's no way we can avoid not having a first fix nailer. However, it's very early days now, but I would say, obviously with the bi-turbo brushless motors and the whole bi-turbo brushless range, it makes perfect sense that we're going to have a first fix nailer. Now that we've got both the power supply in regards to the Procore 80-volt batteries, as well as the bi-turbo brushless motors themselves, you know, that's starting to get the ability to drive first fix nails, concrete nails, all these kinds of things. So I'd say keep your eyes peeled because things are coming.
It'll be out on social media before. Well, I'd say
we might find out.
We might find out just before social media, but it'll be out there pretty quick.
Exactly. And again, another reason for you guys to always sign up to the Bosch Professional Live UK because we do get our hands on all the prototypes and the marketing samples before most of the people get out there and share them.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay, so we had another one from Callum, and he says, also, the new brushless jigsaws look really cool. Any chance of a live stream about them soon?
Actually,
you say that.
A couple of white boxes arrived on my desk yesterday. We have the marketing samples that have just turned up. So yes, we were talking about a woodworking live stream at one point, and they would fall clear into that category. So yeah, if you've got any ideas or any suggestions of what live streams you want us to maybe look into a little bit more, then we're open to any
there you go.
suggestions.
I mean, put a suggestion in. We'll, as you said, the live streams are all about you guys having a bit more feedback with us, having a bit more control, asking us what you would like to see. If you want to look at woodworking tools, if you want to look at the jigsaws, let us know. Although, I think we've already said we were already thinking about doing a woodworking section, looking at some of our woodworking system tools, our 18-volt system tools. The jigsaws would definitely be part of that.
Like I said, we're here to answer your questions, have a frank talk about machines with not so much of the marketing stuff built into it. But yes, by all means, we're here to answer your questions. We're here to just have a chat.
I mean, today's been quite informal, and I'm happy we haven't bored too many of you with obviously going into the app. The app's obviously really important to us, and part of the connectivity message is sometimes lost because it seems complicated, but it really isn't. So we want to take opportunities like this live stream to really dive into the app, without boring you, of course, to make sure you understand it's really simple. We've made we've gone at great lengths to make it really simple. So thank you for the compliment on the live stream. Again, any suggestions on different kinds of, not even products, but different things you want to see? Maybe you want us to do live demos, for example, because obviously we're in Denham, we're in the studio in Denham, but just next door are the workshops. We've got all the tools from the professional range, so not just the bi-turbo range and the 18-volt range, but every tool that we've got currently for sale, all next door. We're happy to just grab tools off the shelves and show you how they work. You know?
It's good, yeah. I look forward to that.
Yeah. Any other questions, Rob?
I'll tell you what, you can have one from me. I've just had a thought about it. So when we've got the connected tools and you're connecting to them, say at the moment you're on your iPad, but you've forgotten it. You've gone to your work site with your tool, but you've forgotten your iPad, you want to adjust things. Can you download the app on someone else's device and then connect to it and still see all of your settings that you had in the other place? Do you know if that works?
Right, so my understanding is that if you try and connect a tool to a new device, you can still see the settings. I think you can change the settings, but you might unfortunately override them. It's a good question. I'll double check it.
You won't have access to the custom settings. The
Not on
custom
the-
settings
yes.
are saved to your device. But if you know the setting that you want, you can pair it, provided it's not connected to another mobile device in the area. But if you've left your phone behind, that's not going to be the case. Then yeah, you can connect to another device, and you can adjust it with the other device. It's no problem.
Nice, glad to hear it. Anyways, Six Atlantis says, thanks for these live videos.
Okay,
Okay, we'll take every compliment we'll get. Alistair Brown asks, are Bosch developing new battery technology as per the DeWalt power stack?
Right, I can answer this one.
You can get them.
But again, we don't want to talk too much about competitors because it's not what we want to do. As my understanding is the power stack is a compact battery. It's using the pocket batteries as opposed to using things like the 18650 or the 21700 cells. So I would argue and say that it's just a different way of packaging the energy. We obviously already produce a whole range of compact batteries that use 18650 and 21700 cells. So example being with the Procore 4 amp hour, 21700 cells in there. Okay. We don't feel the need to do a power stack battery platform. We don't believe that there's any additional benefits. We're very happy. I think everyone out in the market is very happy running, 18650, 21700 cells. My understanding is it's fine. It's the way they want to go to it. I don't see any real improvement in using a different battery technology.
It's a development choice, really, isn't it? I mean, you think about the 21700s and the energy density of one of those at the moment. It stands to reason in years to come that energy density is going to be increased by different maybe different manufacturing methods.
Yes.
Do you want to stick with that, or do you want to go in a completely another direction?
Yeah.
Which is a
Yeah,
which
one
is
of,
the pocket
again,
batteries.
one of the advantages in maintaining the cell-shaped battery platform is because we've got a lot of technology invested in both our Coolpack and our Procore 18-volt battery platform. Obviously, the Procores have been completely optimized for the 21700 cell, and with things like obviously the TPE material, the HDPE Coolpack material, and as well as the copper contacts, as well as the laser welding technology we use on that. So what we've done is we've really reinforced the technology or the innovations that came from the old battery platform and put it all into these Procore 18-volt batteries. So again, we're not here to like poo-poo on our competitors, but as far as I'm concerned, I think that we've got the winning strategy when it comes to making the most efficient and most powerful batteries out there.
Perfect. I'll admit that my camera's decided that my face is only fit for radio, so you're just going to hear my voice and my voice alone. But Philip just says, hello from Texas. That's
Hello
pretty
from
cool. Gone worldwide.
How hot is it in Texas right now?
Oh, I dread to think. It's
Well,
going to be hot
it's been
in
better
here.
recently. Luckily, the weather's calmed down a bit here in the UK. We were complaining about 40 degrees, but I think 40 degrees is probably your winter, right?
I mean, I don't want to see 40 degrees again. No chance.
That is enough.
But no, that's all the questions for now.
I think we're good for time as well. So again, it's nearly 5 o'clock. Thank you very much again for watching the live stream with me and Danny. We'll see you again in 2 weeks. Feel free to put some comments in the chat what you'd like to see next. Until then, thank you very much from me.
Thank you for me. Thank you very much.
And thank you from me. Bye.